Hello friends, a very good day to you. Today we are going to discuss the causes for the revolt of 1857. Causes for the revolt of 1857. Now remember that the revolt of 1857, even though it has been called the mutiny of 1857 or the Sepoy mutiny of 1857, it was much more than a Sepoy mutiny, and it was much more than a revolt. Also, it was, as S.B. Chaudhary has commented, was a civil rebellion. Whereas some people also have the ideation that it was a national a national movement against the alien British rulers. However, you see, even if these categories are contentious, we understand that it was a mass movement, it was a violent movement to overthrow British rule in India, and it was led by, various sections of the society, which included the zamindari, the elite ruling classes, the sepoys, and even commoners. All right. So in understanding the causes for the revolt of 1857, we have to look into all of these elements, all right, and all of these natures of the revolt of 1857, and then we can extrapolate the various causes for the revolt of 1857. Now, proceeding forward, as we see in most historical events, there are certain gradations of causes, and these gradations of causes are mostly common for all historical events. All right. So these would be the economic causes, the political causes, and the social causes. Okay. And these gradations of causes will be common to most historical events. And what else is common to most historical events? Most, I say, and not all, is a trigger event. All right. A trigger event, or what can also be called an immediate cause. In fact, the truism that various long-term causes were associated with the percolation of the revolt or the eventual revolt of 1857, that the idea that there were certain long-term causes which led to the revolt of 1857 was come up by certain members in the British quarters themselves, okay, and certain members in British political circles itself. All right. However, at the very beginning, most stress was put upon the trigger event, and that is the hurt to the religious sentiments of the of the Indian sepoys who were working for the British, okay, who were working in the Indian army. All right. And this immediate trigger was caused by the introduction of the Enfield rifle. All right. And the Enfield rifle, as we understand, is a rifle which comes with a cartridge, and the cartridge contains the gunpowder and the ball, the musket ball, in one package, and this package has to be bitten off, and this package has to be torn off after biting it off, and then you can load your muskets with this package, right? And a rumor was circulated that this package was greased with the fat of cows and pigs. All right. And this was anathema to most of the soldiers who were working as sepoys in the British army. All right. And these soldiers would not bite off these cartridges, and they actually rebelled, and these rebellions were proceeding from the early period of 1857 itself, but it reached its high point during May 10th of 1857, and in May 10th the rebellion broke out in Meerut, in the Meerut contingent. All right. But before that, Barakpur had also seen a rebellion, and other places had also seen a mutiny from the soldiers who were refusing to use the Enfield rifle and the cartridge that comes with the Enfield rifle. However, we should also shift our focus from the Enfield rifle, because this explains the rebellion in a very narrow manner. We should also focus on the other causes associated with the revolt of 1857, and as we already mentioned, the revolt of 1857 has certain long-term causes, and these long-term causes were observed even by the British, and that too immediately after the rebellion itself. Okay. So let us look at the economic causes. In the economic front, we understand that India and Indian handlooms, India and Indian agriculture, all right, and the economy of India as a whole was systematically exploited by the British, and to a great extent, the revenue settlements, all right, revenue settlements were to be blamed, all right. The revenue system of revenue settlements that were introduced by the British were to blame. How? We see the introduction of the permanent settlement caused a lot of upheaval in the rural areas of Bengal. All right, it caused a real upheaval in the rural areas of Bengal, and the least of its impact was in the economic economic front. However, the economic front has to also be analyzed. All right, and we know that a permanent settlement did not give any kind of rights to the tenants of land. The rights of property were given to the zamindars, and the zamindars could levy any form of rent from the tenants, and this led to rack renting, and the tenants were really and seriously impoverished, and it also led to certain social phenomena. Okay, how? Because the rent on the zamindar itself, the zamindar who had been given the proprietary rights, the rent on the zamindar itself was fixed at a very high level. Okay, it was the absolute maximum possible, because Cornwallis stated that the rent should be fixed at the absolute maximum possible, because rent will not be raised. The rent on land, the revenue accruing from rent will not be raised for a significant period of time, and therefore it should be fixed at the absolute maximum. And in certain cases, even zamindars could not pay the rent. Not just certain, in most cases the zamindars could not make the rent that was payable to the British government, and this saw eviction of the traditional zamindars from their own landed property. And therefore, when the revolt of 1857 breaks out in places such as Bihar, we see important leaders of the revolt in the form of Kanwar Singh, Amar Singh, all of the zamindari classes. These people are from the zamindari classes who had been erstwhile zamindars, whose land had been taken away. These people picking up arms with whose help? With the help of their own tenants, with the help of their subjects, okay, erstwhile subjects, okay, and they take their help and they rise up against the British, and therefore the economic causes cannot be overlooked at all, and to a great extent the revenue settlements of the British were to be blamed for the economic upheaval in Indian society. As far as the as far as the artisanal classes are concerned, the artisanal classes were also very greatly hit by the industrial revolution in Britain and the influx of cheap cloth and machine made cloth into India, and this also caused impoverishment in the urbanized areas. All right, and all of these were to be blamed for all of these were to be blamed for the outbreak of the revolt of 1857. Now, moving on, let us also look into the political causes, and remember that Wellesley, Dalhousie included, all of these governor generals of Britain, they had embarked upon a very reactionary policy against the Indian ruling classes. Okay, they had embarked upon a reactionary policy as far as the Indian ruling classes was concerned. Okay, and this meant that they would take away the ancestral properties, titles, and also the ancestral the hereditary rights these Indian ruling classes had over their own territories. And through the doctrine of lapse, through the doctrine of subsidiary alliance, these rulers, the British Indian rulers of the East India Company, they were usurping great and vast amounts of lands all over India. The culmination is seen in the 1856 annexation of Awadh. All right, in 1856 Awadh is annexed, and this also is one of the important causes behind the rebellion of 1857. And we see in Awadh itself Begum Hazrat Mahal, the mother of the erstwhile ruler Wajid Ali Shah, taking up the cause of the rebellion in Awadh. All right, and we see Nana Sahib taking up the cause of the rebellion from Kanpur. These are all of the ruling classes, and they have been denied their rights to rule over the subjects, and therefore they take up arms. We see the same thing as far as the Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi is concerned. All right, so the political causes can also not be negated. Now let us go into the social causes. As far as the social causes are concerned, now remember the revenue settlements that we talked about, the revenue settlements which led to the eviction of zamindars from their own lands. Remember, that also causes some kind of social upheaval, because when these zamindars go out of their own lands, who comes into the rural society? the urbanized people, the urbanized classes who have become, you see, newly rich through trade and through manufacturing activities. They come in, they buy the zamindari lands and they become zamindars in their own rights, and most of these times these zamindars are absentee zamindars. They are not present in the rural areas, so they are not in touch with the realities of you see, rural agriculture. They are also not traditional leaders of the people, of the rural masses. They are not the traditional leaders. They are not connected to the rural masses through kinship ties, okay, kinship and caste ties, all right. These people who are of different caste, of different lineages, they are coming in and they are trying to proclaim themselves master over the tenants, and this is not accepted by the tenants themselves, all right. And this is a cause for great social upheaval in rural India. Apart from that, another factor that has been mentioned is the meddling of the British in the religious, socio-religious affairs of the Indians at this particular point of time. Now remember, 1835 is the year when the Anglicist Orientalist debate finally subsides, and the Anglicists win a victory over the Orientalists, and from then on, from 1835 on, all forms of education in India and even political policies and administrative policies of India will be, you see, directed by an Anglican or by a European perspective, all right. So Indian knowledge base and Indian traditions will not become, you see, important parts of administration from now on, and European traditions and European, you see, ideas of how, you see, people should behave will become the dominant rule in this particular phase of time. And therefore we see that all of these leads to, you see, religious intolerance as far as the British are concerned and their attitude towards Indians are concerned. We see, you see, an attitude taken up by British administrator, a downgrading attitude taken up by British administrators towards Indian culture and traditions, and also religious rights and certain, you see, religious traditions, all right. And these also causes some kind of a social ferment, and therefore we see certain religious leaders also taking up arms against the British administration during the revolt of 1857. We see as an example Maulvi Ahmadullah, who leads the rebellion from Faizabad, who even proclaims a fatwa against the East India Company, saying that the rule of the East India Company is satanic and that a jihad should be conducted against the East India Company and the East India Company's rule. So these kind of feelings among the religious classes are produced by the East India Company's administrative policies towards the religious inclination of Indians. And you see, lastly, with the trigger event itself and the immediate cause itself, there is something bigger related, and that is the army as a whole, all right. The army, the native infantry which had rebelled, all right, the northern infantry or the Bengal infantry which had rebelled against the British, who were the first ones to take up arms against the British masters, they had certain specific grievances which are specific to the army, all right. Now remember that Indian officers were not promoted beyond the rank of Havaldar, all right. This was the maximum that they could reach. This is the maximum rank that they could reach in the Indian army. They could not become commissioned officers, and this was a cause for grievance. On the other hand, they were also, you see, the stipend that is paid to them or the compensation that is paid to them for fighting overseas was also stopped right before the revolt of 1857. Okay, so there is a you see, religious injunction in India prevalent at that point of time, that if you travel across the sea, all right, you will lose your caste and you will lose your religion. And the soldiers are doing the same. They are traveling across seas and going overseas and fighting. But even after taking such a huge social risk and a huge religious risk, the compensation that they were traditionally paid for fighting overseas was stopped, and this was also a cause for grievance, all right. And the racist attitude of their, you see, commanding officers, it also created some kind of you see, hatred among the Indian army soldiers against their British masters, all right. And all of this together with the immediate trigger event, they caused you see, the British Indian soldiers of the native infantry, that is the Bengal infantry, to rise up. However, the connecting factor between the army And all of these causes, okay, there is a connection between the army and all of these causes, and it was perhaps first stated out by Rudrangshu Mukherjee when he stated that actually the Indian army soldiers were peasants in arms, okay, they were peasants in arms. All right. What this statement means is that the Indian army soldiers or the soldiers of the Bengal infantry who were fighting for the British were actually recruited from areas, they were known as Purbiyas. The name that they were given was Purbiyas. They come from Bengal and they come from the Bihar region, okay, and certain parts of UP also. And all of these Purbiya soldiers were deeply affected by the economic, political and social causes which we had already discussed. They had also been deeply affected, okay, and their homes have been deeply affected, their own villages had been deeply affected by all of these causes, and therefore it was not a surprise that the immediate grievances of the army, it also found vent in the form of grievances of the whole system, of the whole British Indian system at that point of time, and it was a systemic exploitation by the British which caused the army to rebel, all right, and it was soon joined by the civil masses and it turned into a civil rebellion, okay. So this is the crux of the revolt of 1857. This is actually the nature of the revolt of 1857, that it was not simply a mutiny but it was something more, and there has been researches going on the revolt of 1857, but it is still and yet not been conclusively stated what exactly was the revolt of 1857, apart from the fact that you see, the revolt of 1857 was not just a mutiny, but it was something bigger. Nothing conclusive can be, you say, outright spoken about the revolt of 1857. But we know it was a mass movement, and it was a movement which was carried out to, you see, wipe out British rule in India. All right. So I hope the causes for the revolt of 1857 are clear to you. I hope that you will be studying hard. Thank you.